All right, guys, we're here live on the Andrew Brunet Show on Facebook and YouTube, and we're also streaming on different TV networks. And today, I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Eric Hohman of First There Foundation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you so much. So, tell us a little bit about the background of First There.
Sure. Couple of years, 2 years ago, a dear friend of mine, he was my first supervisor as a combat controller, and 6 months after leaving the teams, the demons of war got to him, and he committed suicide. Obviously, broke a lot of our hearts, and for me, I realized there was a gap missing for combat controllers when we leave the teams. There's tons of veteran services out there, and I think they do a pretty good job picking up the slack from like what the VA is hurting on. So I for combat controllers though, and I'm sure a lot of your audience doesn't know what a combat controller is. Every since 1954, when you look at every major engagement the U.S. has ever gone out in any conflict, there's a combat controller assigned to a Navy SEAL team, a Special Forces team, any team that's out there that's soft, Special Operation Forces. There is a combat controller assigned to that team. The Bin Laden raid, Captain Phillips, Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down, and it's just a shame that the public we just been a really well kept secret, which in a way it's good, but in a way it's bad because then there's no acknowledgement. So for me, the First Air Foundation was to honor guys like Chris and other combat controllers. I didn't want Chris's nephews and nieces growing up and going out to the public and saying, hey, my uncle was a combat controller, and getting those blank stares that I get when I tell people I'm a combat controller. So I think it's time for us, I say, raise our flags and let people know that yellow lightning bolt, that's who we are and how we've helped tons of teams and guys stay safe, and come back home.
Oh, wow. So, that's what the yellow lightning bolt is. That's on your shirt and on your jacket there.
Yeah. So I got to represent it a little bit, and the SEALs have their trident, and the Green Berets have their crest, and our main thing is the lightning bolt. And like I said, it's just a shame that a lot of people don't know, especially after 22 years of being in Afghanistan fighting. So there's always been a combat controller side by side next to those guys.
So, with your experience in the Air Force, what was your hopes and goals that you would have with First Air Foundation, and what were some of the experiences that really brought this idea to your mind?
As far as the Air Force, we're told that we're quiet professionals. After missions and engagements, none of the guys ever came back and really wrote a book, or there was a movie. Everybody just came back, stayed quiet. I mean, we knew what we did. We got our medals, in private ceremonies, and that was it. We went among our lives, or about our lives, I should say. And again, after I left the teams in 2013, I started seeing that my transition was really rough because I would go to job interviews and different things, and people just didn't know who we were, even though we were such a key, vital piece to every mission, the success of every mission out there. So that's why First There was it just sparked my soul on fire. And I said, okay, well, it's time for people to get to the U.S. and people around the world to be educated on what a combat controller is and what he does. So that's my goal for First Air is just to have that name recognition and some, household name to be, to give people that warm and fuzzy, right? Of know who they're talking to and across the way from them and saying, okay, this guy has actually been out there just like a SEAL does, just like a Green Beret, a Ranger, you know, I just want that recognition and acknowledgement for all the guys before me and all the guys that are going to come after me.
So, in what ways do you hope to bring awareness to combat controllers across the world?
Well, there's going to be a movie coming out about John Chapman. John Chapman's our first Medal of Honor recipient, and he received this Medal of Honor, I believe, 2 years ago after he gave his life protecting SEAL Team 6. I'm not sure if you're aware of the name called Roberts Ridge. It's kind of the name, but Taku Gar was where they were in Afghanistan. But John Chapman was with the SEAL Team 6 at the time. One of the, I don't know if you know the story, but one of the SEALs got shot out of the helicopter. The helicopter landed to try to recover him, and then they were engaged by heavy enemy fire. So John Chapman was out there, rushing bunkers and protecting that team and allowed that team, SEAL Team 6, to exfil and head back. So there was a couple casualties, but John, at the end, after receiving tons of different wounds, he succumbed to his injuries. But that's one big thing that's supposed to be coming out in November or early spring. Jake Gyllenhaal is the lead actor for that, so that'll be really good for us. And there's other things that are be coming out that I think as the public starts getting aware of that movie, and with First Air, and I'm trying to push it as much as possible on social media, Instagram and Facebook. And I think the guys are being a little bit more vocal about what they've done overseas.
So we have a clip that we're fixing to show. Would you like to tell the folks a little bit about it?
So this video was the first Medal of Honor ever recorded. With John Chapman, the guy that I was just talking about, when he was calling in for air support, one of his radios was damaged, so he couldn't receive the transmissions. And there was a drone, an unarmed drone or an armed drone that would belong to the CIA flying over that area. So he captured the action of John and how he was, even though he took a couple rounds, and I think he got knocked out for a few minutes, got back up and started fighting and fought till his very last breath. So this video, I'm not sure which clip or what part of it, but it's basically that firefight of John Chapman protecting his team and doing all he could as a combat controller to make sure his boys got home safe.
All right, we're going to show this clip and we'll be right back.
Chapman, a U.S. Air Force combat controller, and the SEALs are attempting to rescue their lost teammate. You'll watch Chapman's heroic actions as he saves the lives of his entire SEAL team and then another 18 members of a quick reaction force, earning America's highest award, the Medal of Honor. Chapman and the SEALs exfil their MH-47 helicopter. John is the second individual to exit and immediately moves in the direction of the summit. He can be seen moving off to the right of the screen, alone. The team is taking heavy fire from every direction, as indicated by the arrows, as Chapman begins engaging targets. You can see spent cartridges ejecting from his M4. Chapman then begins closing with the enemy, forcing his way upslope in knee and thigh-deep snow. He is constantly under fire as he does this. Chapman's team leader begins to close on Chapman, following his trail through the snow. The dark mass above Chapman is a fortified bunker containing 2 enemy fighters, each armed with AK-47s, who are firing down on the team in the darkness. This bunker will come to be known as Bunker Number 1. To the left of the tree and Bunker 1 is another gray mass. This is a rock outcropping that came to be called the Boulder. Between Bunker 1 and this boulder can be seen the body of slain SEAL Neil Roberts, the man Chapman and the others are attempting to recover. Chapman, still alone and closest to the enemy, pauses to engage targets as his team leader follows him, but never actually catches up with him. Chapman, on his own, now makes the decision to charge directly into the enemy bunker, despite withering point-blank fire. Chapman, now literally on top of the enemy, engages the 2 combatants and kills them, saving the lives of the remaining SEALs. He does this from a distance of no more than 10 feet. These actions by themselves earned him his first Medal of Honor. He then climbs into and takes control of the bunker. Having cleared the immediate threat, Chapman is then joined by his team leader in Bunker 1. You can then see Chapman and his team leader engaging the next bunker, known as Bunker 2, which is situated to the left edge of the screen. This bunker, manned by a handful of Chechen and Uzbek fighters, also contains a heavy PKM machine gun, hand grenades, and rocket-propelled grenades. John Chapman is shot twice at this time in the torso and collapses, incapacitated. You are now looking at a new angle, and at the left of the screen can be seen the 2-man fire team and team leader on top of the boulder. Just below it is Bunker 1 with the mortally wounded Chapman. One SEAL can be seen firing his modified M60 machine gun from the hip into Bunker 2 on the right side of the screen until he is struck by grenade shrapnel and tumbles 10 feet off the top of the boulder, collapsing at the feet of his team leader. thus setting off a chain of events that would lead to the SEALs abandoning Chapman on the summit. The wounded SEAL and the team leader can be seen conferring about his injuries. Moments later, the SEALs decide to retreat from the summit because their position is untenable in the face of continued massive enemy firepower. They can be seen moving toward the right side of the screen and passing the body of Neil Roberts. Unfortunately, the SEALs do not pass John Chapman, who is above them and inside Bunker 1. This angle shows 3 SEALs in a triangle. The larger black heat signature is a smoke grenade. Just to its left is a donkey and dead Al-Qaeda fighter killed by Chapman. The steepness of the mountain can be seen as the SEALs begin to slide down the near sheer face. The team leader, desperate for relief and now with 2 wounded teammates, asks for uncontrolled airstrikes from an orbiting Air Force AC-130 gunship. The impacts you see are from 105mm howitzer rounds being fired onto the ridgetop in order to save the remaining SEALs. Because neither the SEALs nor gunship know Chapman is alive, he is experiencing these detonations from his position. At approximately 5:20 in the morning, Chapman recovers and begins to engage the enemy. Bunker 1 is on the right side center of the screen and Bunker 2 to the left near the screen center. It will never be known what caused his incapacitation and recovery. Of the 2 rounds that originally wounded him, at least 1 was mortal, and at this time he is experiencing severe blood loss and shock. Despite that, he begins his one-man stand against 24 enemy combatants. During this time, Chapman initiates a series of radio calls, many of which are heard by a fellow combat controller and teammate of his and Delta Force operators on a nearby summit. Despite this combat controller's replies, Chapman never acknowledges whether because of damage to his equipment or himself will never be known. This new angle and footage shows Chapman at the top, identified by the green dot under the tree at Bunker 1. The lower center of the screen shows the first enemy fighter who is about to charge Chapman in the hopes of killing the American. The timestamp at the bottom shows it is now 6:05 in the morning and fully light. He's been fighting alone now for 40+ minutes and has received more gunshot and shrapnel wounds as a result of the fierce combat. This scene shows the second of several enemy charges. In this stunning display of determination and courage, Chapman can be seen fighting hand-to-hand with the fighter. In the larger screen display can be seen additional enemy moving on to the summit. But right now, John Chapman is fighting for his life. 6 minutes later, in this new shot, Chapman can hear another helicopter approaching the summit. He is in the bottom center of the screen underneath the tree and can be seen in the magnified inset box as he begins his desperate final stand to save the lives of the 18 men on the helicopter. The red dots are enemy fighters. John begins engaging the enemy in multiple directions and is rapidly approaching the last of his ammunition. The helicopter contains a quick reaction force comprised of Rangers, pararescuemen, and another combat controller. It is now 6:13 and the helicopter is short final. The enemy is desperately trying to displace Chapman so they can put heavy weapons or rocket-propelled grenades in Bunker 1 while simultaneously engaging the helicopter. With the choice to save his life or the lives of his unknown comrades, Chapman makes the decision to climb out of the bunker and begin firing in multiple directions as can be seen in the inset. Suffering from as many as a dozen wounds, Chapman is in fact already in the process of dying. As he fights, the helicopter is struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and makes a remarkable controlled crash just below Chapman and the summit. Chapman, now off-screen, continues to cover his comrades as they pour out of the stricken helicopter. Some of them are fatally shot as they exit. These images, with Chapman fighting the enemy at close quarter, are the last to show him alive and in this heroic act, thus qualifying for his second Medal of Honor. Ultimately, Chapman would expend all but the last few rounds of his ammunition, until, finally, after 16 bullet and shrapnel wounds, Chapman succumbs when he is shot through the heart. We will never know his final thoughts or words, But what we do know is his decisions and actions single-handedly saved the lives of 23 comrades. For more information about John Chapman's amazing story and the details about this mission, visit danschillingbooks.com or your favorite book retailer to obtain a copy of the chronicle of his life, Alone at Dawn.
Wow, I think it's safe to say that combat controllers are the unsung heroes here in this situation. You know, for us people like Christians, believers, in what ways would you say that we should pray for combat controllers?
It's funny you said that. Every mission and every deployment I've said, they've always said God loves combat controllers since the start of when we took off. We've only had a few killed in action, which is we're very lucky because we are an integral part of that team, and I think just because I don't know if we're the ones on the ground talking to the planes up near the sky where God lives, that God looks after us and our teammates. But we've been really lucky. I mean, guys have gotten hurt obviously, but they've lived. And I know when I was deployed, and Mom would just pray that I'd come home. But most importantly, I think all combat controllers, when we get assigned to a team, our main mission, besides the close air support, is to protect the team. And I took that to heart. I would, just like John, I would give my life for my teammates, whether I was working with the Navy or the Army. So that's our bread and butter. And I think a lot of our sister forces respect that about combat controllers, that we never really talk about it, but they know that when we're there, we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe.
What are some common issues, such like anxiety, depression, things that you see that appear in the daily lives of a combat controller that may be hidden at times?
Well, you got to suppress a lot of stuff, because when you're on the teams, you can't let that stuff bother you, because then they take you off status, which means that you cannot deploy anymore. So I think a lot of us want to get back into, for us, it's playing that Super Bowl every time we go to war. So you suppress that and you just train and you get ready for the next mission or the next deployment. So part of First Air, and the reason why I started, is because when I did get out, I started feeling that depression. And I think the big part of it, the major part of it, is that loss of purpose. You go from being with SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and briefing generals and controlling aircraft and having that fourth dimensional battle space awareness, and now all of a sudden now you're back home wherever you're from, and no one really knows, and it's again, it's that loss of identity and loss of purpose. If I was a SEAL and I got out and I went to McDonald's and someone asked me what I did in the military, I was like, oh, I was a Navy SEAL. People would be like, oh my God, you're a Navy, and there's that instant recognition. But if I did the same thing and I said I was a combat controller, people were just like, what is that? Oh, the Air Force has special forces. The Air Force has ground troops. And it's a blow, after a while, you're just like, oh my God, no one knows what I did. And it's painful at times. I think after a while, it does eat at you that you did all that and you sacrificed your life possibly in your body, and no one knows. So I think that's that loss of purpose. For me, it was survivor's guilt. I was lucky. I had a lot of friends get killed. And, I made it home, and there was times where I would pray to God of why am I alive and they're dead, and that was hard to deal with, for sure.
So, how can we as Americans get involved with First There Foundation?
Sure. If you go to the website, it's firstthere.org, but the first word is not spelled first. It's the number one, STTHERE.org. And you can start seeing what we're trying to do. We're a small nonprofit. We just started in January, so we're just rolling. But there's a donation button. There's testimonials on there and what we're doing. And since we are so young and growing on this, it's just going to get better, and just in the 4 months that we've started, the team guys that are still active duty are really buying into it. Gold Star moms, what we're doing for them. And my whole idea with that is I want to be able to be an extension of the team room once you're out of the military, and also for the Gold Star families to know that they're being taken care of as their son would if he was alive. So we check up on them. You know, if there's a bill that we can cover, we will. Just the little things that I think their sons would want our teammates to do, you know. So if I were to get killed, I would want my teammates to look after my mom the way we're looking after theirs. So that's the major thing. But yeah, if they go to the website and they can make a one-time donation, a monthly donation, every little bit helps. And this foundation, I think what differs from other bigger ones is that every single penny of it goes back to the guys. We're not trying to plan the next big event to you know, satisfy our donors. I wanted to keep it small because combat control is very small. Every year there's 300 to 400 dudes, period. And you look at our sister services, the SEALs, about 10,000, the Army, same thing. There's just a ton of them, combat controllers. And I think since we started, there's been less than 5,000 combat controllers, period. So, you know, maybe now with some of the guys being dead from Vietnam era to, you know, Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe about 3,000 maybe total. So we're very, very small fighting force for sure.
So, what are some of the services that First Air provide for combat controllers?
The little things that guys, when they get out, do not know they need. For example, resume writing. We want to get them someone that can help translate what a combat controller does into civilian language, right? There's guys that have never worn a suit before because they've always been in camouflage or you know, when they're in this different where they're stationed, you know, in t-shirt and shorts or cargo pants, you know, they just they don't know how to wear a suit. We want to be able to get them with mental health and mental provider, people that provide mental health, because the biggest part that I saw was there's got to be that trust factor, right? The VA, and there's different veteran programs out there that provide mental health, but if we don't trust them, they're not going to go over there. They're not going to open up, and the results are not going to be optimum. So we have to make sure that it's kind of almost a buddy check, right? That I say, yeah, I trust these guys, you should go there. And then the guys will trust that provider. So we're establishing that network. We're also make sure that, again, if our Gold Star families need something, we're checking up on them. And I'll give you an example. One of our Gold Star moms, she lost 2 of her sons who were combat controllers. And it's a simple thing. One of our guys went over there and asked her how she was doing. And she's like, hey, I need a garbage disposal. Mine broke. And they called me up and we wrote a check and got her garbage disposal. I mean, just those little things. It's the little details, I think, that make us so much different than anything else. But and then we want to build our community, our Gold Star community, and our loved ones, because we do put our loved ones through hell when we're deployed and we're jumping out of airplanes and getting hurt. So we're bringing them together so that way they can talk and build their support system. So that way when the next tragedy comes, because it will come, they'll at least have that support already built in, and not all of a sudden now everybody's getting together and trying to start from scratch. So we're getting there. You know, it's a slow process, but it's coming along well.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. Lastly, we just want to thank you for your service and what you did for this country. We appreciate you, what you do, and we'll be praying for First Air Foundation.
I appreciate that. It was my honor serving our country, and thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. You have a good night.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.